There are 6 reasons people hate you, and none of them are the reasons you've been blaming yourself for. Not because you said the wrong thing, not because you're too much, not because you're hard to love. It goes deeper than that. Because if you've ever sat there, late at night, replaying conversations in your head, analyzing every word, every reaction, wondering quietly, what did I do wrong? You've been looking in the wrong place. The truth is, a lot of the dislike you feel from others was never about your flaws. It was about what your presence activates inside them. And once you see this clearly, something shifts. You stop shrinking. You stop over-explaining. You stop trying to be easier to digest for people who were never trying to understand you in the first place. In this video, I'm going to walk you through the 6 real psychological reasons people resent you. Not opinions, not assumptions, patterns. Patterns you'll start recognizing almost immediately. And more importantly, you'll begin to understand why their behavior says more about them than it ever did about you. So if you're tired of second-guessing yourself, if you're tired of carrying blame that was never yours, and you're ready to see this clearly, subscribe to Psychology of Stoics. This is where we break down human behavior calmly, honestly, without illusions. Let's take a breath and get into it. The first reason people hate you is because you remind them of what they're not. Reason 1, you remind them of what they're not. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Marcus Aurelius. Most people hear that quote, but very few actually live it. And that's where the tension begins. Because when someone sees you taking responsibility for your life, being disciplined, holding yourself to a higher standard, you're not just existing in their world, you're contradicting it. Psychologically, this is called a self-discrepancy trigger. It's the gap between who someone is and who they know they could be. And instead of closing that gap, most people protect their ego. How? By rejecting the reminder, by rejecting you. Think about it. You start going to the gym consistently, suddenly people around you make jokes. You become more focused, more intentional. They call you too serious. You stop engaging in gossip. They say you've changed. But what's really happening is this. Your behavior is forcing them to confront something uncomfortable, their own inaction. And instead of rising, they try to pull you back down to where they feel safe. Not consciously, not maliciously in every case, but predictably. Because growth in one person exposes stagnation in another. And that exposure feels like pressure. So they relieve that pressure by discrediting you, by minimizing you, by labeling you. You think you're better than everyone now. You've changed. You're doing too much. But look closer. Those statements aren't observations, they're defenses. Because it's easier to say you've changed than to admit they haven't. Here's the part most people miss. You didn't create their insecurity, you revealed it. And there's a difference. Let that land. Because if you misunderstand this, you'll start shrinking yourself to make others comfortable. You'll downplay your growth. You'll soften your ambition. You'll dim your discipline, just to avoid triggering people who were never ready to face themselves. And that's the trap. The moment you start abandoning your standards to protect someone else's ego, you lose. Not loudly, not instantly, but slowly, quietly. You start becoming someone you don't respect. So here's the shift. You are not responsible for how your growth makes other people feel. You're allowed to improve. You're allowed to evolve. You're allowed to become someone unrecognizable to those who chose to stay the same. And you don't need to apologize for that. Now, if this is already starting to shift how you see your relationships, take a second to like the video. It helps more people understand what they've been misinterpreting for years. Because what we're about to get into next goes even deeper. The second reason people hate you is because you trigger their insecurities. Reason 2, you trigger their insecurities. No one is free who is not master of himself. Epictetus. Most people think insecurity looks like weakness. It doesn't. It often looks like criticism, sarcasm, passive-aggressive comments, subtle attempts to humble you. Because insecurity doesn't announce itself, it defends itself. Here's the mechanism. Every person carries a fragile internal narrative about who they are. I'm smart. I'm attractive. I'm successful. I'm the strong one. And when your presence challenges that narrative, their nervous system reacts as if it's under attack. Not because you attacked them, but because you contradicted them. Let's slow that down. You're confident, but quiet. You don't overshare. You don't chase validation. Someone who survives on attention feels threatened by that. Your calm exposes their chaos. Or maybe you're emotionally aware. You communicate directly. You set boundaries without yelling. Someone who avoids accountability feels exposed. Your clarity highlights their avoidance. And instead of thinking, maybe I should grow, they think, something about you bothers me. Notice the distortion. The discomfort originates inside them, but it gets projected onto you. This is psychological projection. The traits they reject in themselves, they attack in others. There's a reason people who struggle with discipline criticize ambitious people. A reason insecure partners accuse loyal ones. A reason emotionally immature coworkers gossip about the most stable person in the room. Because your stability makes their instability visible. And visibility is painful. I once worked with someone who constantly downplayed other people's achievements. Promotions, milestones, even small wins. He'd just say, "It's not that big of a deal." But when you looked deeper, he had been stuck in the same role for years, afraid to apply for more responsibility. It wasn't hate, it was unprocessed insecurity. And here's the break pattern. If someone feels small around you, they have two choices: grow or shrink you. Growth requires humility. Shrinking you requires gossip. Guess which one is easier? Now this is where people like you get trapped. You're empathetic. You replay interactions. You ask yourself, did I make them feel bad? And that self-awareness is beautiful. But it becomes dangerous when you start taking responsibility for emotions that were never yours. You are not obligated to perform smaller so someone else feels bigger. You're allowed to speak clearly. You're allowed to succeed publicly. You're allowed to exist confidently. And if that triggers someone, that doesn't make you cruel. It makes you a mirror. And what you reflect back is what they haven't healed yet. Which leads to something even harder to admit. Because sometimes, it's not just insecurity, it's desire. The third reason people hate you is because you have something they want. Reason 3, you have something they want. Jealousy disguised as hate. Envy is ignorance. Imitation is suicide. Ralph Waldo Emerson. Jealousy rarely introduces itself honestly. It doesn't say, I wish I had what you have. It says, you're overrated. You got lucky. You're not that special. But beneath those words is comparison. And comparison is painful. Here's what happens neurologically. When someone sees you possessing something they desire, confidence, relationships, discipline, status, peace, their brain automatically measures the gap between where they are and where you are. That gap creates tension, and tension demands relief. Healthy people relieve it through inspiration. They study you, they learn, they grow. Unhealthy people relieve it through resentment. They minimize your success. They question your integrity. They subtly hope you fail. Not because they hate you personally, but because your success highlights their dissatisfaction. Think about it. The friend who starts acting distant after you level up. The coworker who stops celebrating your wins. The family member who says, don't get too ahead of yourself. It's rarely random. It's rarely about you being too much. It's about you being evidence. evidence that what they want is possible. And that possibility makes their excuses harder to maintain. Let's make this real. Imagine you start building something, a business, a fitness transformation, a healthier relationship pattern. At first, people clap. But the moment you become consistent, the energy shifts. Why? Because consistency is threatening. Consistency proves you're serious, and seriousness forces others to confront their own half-effort. Here's the break pattern. Jealousy often sounds like moral criticism. They'll frame their resentment as concern. You're changing. You're obsessed. You're too focused on yourself. But look carefully. Is your growth harming anyone? Or is it simply making them uncomfortable? There's a difference. And here's the emotional spike. You are allowed to have good things. You're allowed to succeed without shrinking. You're allowed to be loved without apologizing. You're allowed to experience joy without dimming it to protect someone else's ego. Their inability to be happy for you is not a character flaw in you. It's a limitation in them. Now here's something important. Jealousy becomes especially intense when you combine two things: success and boundaries. Because success makes people want access. Boundaries limit that access. And that combination, that's when resentment turns personal, which brings us to the next reason. Because sometimes people don't hate what you have, they hate that they can't control you. The fourth reason people resent you is because you won't let them control you. Reason 4, you won't let them control you. The more we value things outside our control, the less control we have. Epictetus. Control is one of the quiet currencies of human relationships. Not always dramatic, not always obvious. Sometimes it looks like guilt. Sometimes it sounds like obligation. Sometimes it hides inside, "I'm just trying to help." Here's the mechanism. When someone benefits from you being agreeable, over-explaining, over-apologizing, over-available, they build a version of you in their mind, predictable, manageable, responsive to pressure. And the moment you start setting boundaries, not angrily, not loudly, just clearly, you disrupt that dynamic. And disruption feels like loss of control. For someone who is used to influencing you through emotion, withdrawal feels like rebellion. You say no. You stop engaging in gossip. You don't answer every text immediately. You refuse to be pulled into unnecessary drama. And suddenly, you're cold. You're selfish. You've changed. But here's the uncomfortable truth. The version of you they liked was the version they could influence. When you reclaim agency, it forces them to confront something they don't like. They can't steer you anymore. In psychology, this often triggers a reactance response. When people feel their control slipping, they push harder. They escalate, they criticize, they test your boundaries. Not because your boundary is wrong, but because it removed their leverage. Let's ground this in something real. Maybe you grew up as the peacemaker in your family. You kept things smooth. You absorbed tension. The moment you stop absorbing, the system shakes. Now you're difficult. Now you're dramatic. Now you're too sensitive. But what actually changed? You stopped volunteering to carry what wasn't yours. Break pattern. Boundaries don't destroy healthy relationships. They expose unhealthy ones. Read that again. Healthy people adjust. Unhealthy people accuse. And this is where many empaths collapse. Because you don't want conflict. You don't want people upset with you. So you start negotiating your limits. You soften your no. You explain too much. You reopen doors you already closed. And slowly, you train people that your boundaries are flexible. But here's the emotional spike. You are allowed to say no without a 10-minute explanation. You're allowed to protect your time. You're allowed to protect your peace. You're allowed to choose yourself. Someone losing control over you does not mean you're doing something wrong. It means the dynamic has shifted, and not everyone benefits from that shift. Now here's where it gets deeper, because sometimes it's not about control in the present. Sometimes you represent something even more painful. Not who they are now, but who they once dreamed of becoming. The fifth reason people hate you is because you represent their lost potential. Reason 5, you represent their lost potential. Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. Marcus Aurelius. There's a particular kind of resentment that feels heavier than jealousy, quieter, more personal. It's the resentment of someone who once had a dream and buried it. Because when they look at you pursuing something meaningful, even imperfectly, you don't just trigger insecurity, you trigger memory. Memory of who they used to be, memory of the risks they didn't take, memory of the standards they slowly negotiated down. Psychologically, this is called cognitive dissonance. When someone sees you living in alignment with values they abandoned, their mind faces two painful options: admit they compromised, or discredit you. Guess which one protects the ego faster? Let's make it concrete. You decide to go back to school at 28. A relative says, "Isn't that a little late?" You start building a side business. A friend laughs. Almost nobody makes it doing that. You leave a toxic relationship. Someone mutters, "You expect too much." Look closely. These comments aren't predictions. They're projections. Because your action reopens a question they closed. What if I had tried? And that question hurts. It hurts because potential, once abandoned, doesn't disappear. It lingers. It becomes a quiet regret in the background of someone's life. And when they see you refusing to settle, it forces them to confront the settling they accepted. Break pattern. You are not responsible for protecting people from their regrets. You are not obligated to shrink your ambition so someone else doesn't have to revisit their abandoned courage. There's something powerful about watching someone choose growth. It destabilizes excuses. If you can do it, maybe they could have too. And that realization is uncomfortable. Now here's the emotional spike. You're allowed to pursue what excites you. You're allowed to evolve past the environment that shaped you. You're allowed to outgrow people who refuse to grow themselves. Their sadness about their path is not a verdict on yours. Sometimes when people criticize your standards, your discipline, your optimism, it's not hatred, it's grief. Grief for a version of themselves they no longer believe they can become. But we're not done, because the final reason goes even deeper. It's not about what you do. It's not about what you have. It's about how you feel. And for some people, your happiness alone is threatening. The sixth reason people hate you is because your happiness threatens their misery. Reason 6, your happiness threatens their misery. Happiness and freedom begin with a clear understanding of one principle. Some things are within our control, and some things are not. Epictetus. There is something deeply unsettling about a person who is at peace, not loud happiness, not performative positivity, but grounded, steady contentment. Because when someone has built their identity around struggle, around complaining, around being the victim of every circumstance, your peace becomes disruptive. Here's the mechanism. Misery, over time, can become a social bond. People connect through shared frustration, through gossip, through mutual dissatisfaction. If someone has normalized chaos, they subconsciously expect you to participate in it. When you don't, it breaks the script. You don't engage in the negativity. You don't fuel the drama. You don't match their bitterness. And instead of inspiring them, it irritates them. Because your emotional regulation removes a common ground. Now they can't connect with you through complaining, and that can feel like rejection. There's also something more subtle happening. When a person believes happiness is rare, fragile, or undeserved, Seeing you embody it challenges their belief system. If you can create peace without perfect circumstances, then maybe their misery isn't entirely circumstantial. Maybe it's patterned, maybe it's practiced, maybe it's familiar, and that possibility is threatening. So they cope by reframing your happiness as naive. You're just lucky. You'll see how the world really works. You're pretending everything's fine. But calm confidence is not denial. It's discipline. It's someone who decided not to let every external event dictate their internal state. And that level of sovereignty can feel confronting to someone who feels ruled by circumstance. Break pattern. Your joy does not require universal approval. You don't need to perform struggle to be relatable. You don't need to dim your light to maintain proximity to people who are comfortable in darkness. Here's the emotional spike. You're allowed to be happy, even if others aren't. You're allowed to heal, even if they stay wounded. You're allowed to choose peace, even if chaos is familiar to them. If someone feels exposed by your contentment, that exposure belongs to them, not you. And sometimes, the most radical thing you can do is remain calm in a world that profits from outrage. No anchor, just clarity. Because once you understand this, you stop negotiating your emotional state for acceptance. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Marcus Aurelius. If you step back and really look at everything we covered, a pattern starts to emerge. You are not hated because you're flawed. You are often disliked because you are a mirror, a trigger, a reminder. You remind people of what they're not. You trigger insecurities they haven't faced. You possess things they secretly desire. You refuse to be controlled. You represent the courage they postponed. You embody happiness they don't know how to create. And none of that is a crime. Their jealousy is their work. Their projections are their responsibility. Their discomfort is their growth opportunity, not yours. Break pattern. You are allowed to have good things. You're allowed to be confident. You're allowed to evolve. You're allowed to succeed without apology. And you don't need to downplay your life to make other people feel better about theirs. So pause for a moment, not for me, for you. Ask yourself, where have I been shrinking to keep the peace? Where have I been apologizing for simply existing at my full capacity? Because awareness is where power begins. And when you can name what's really happening, you stop taking it personally. You stop explaining yourself to people who were never trying to understand you. You stop negotiating your identity for acceptance. And that's the shift. Not becoming cold, not becoming distant, but becoming clear. Clear about who you are, clear about what you value, clear about what you tolerate. Because once you have clarity, their opinions lose weight, their reactions lose control, their rejection loses meaning, their hate becomes noise, and your growth becomes inevitable.